I have a hierarchy of how I prefer to play retro video games, the most preferred way being as authentic as possible with original hardware and software. Then original hardware with software emulation, then hardware emulation with the original software or original controller, then software emulation with the original controller, then software emulation on a totally different form factor. So it's kind of obvious why the Evercade has been out since 2019, and this is my first video on the device. For those of you unaware, the Evercade is a platform that offers a curated collection of games on individual cartridges to play either on the go or on your TV. Since 2019, Blaze has put out over 50 cartridges, each with anywhere from 2 to 20 games from a variety of different publishers across multiple generations of systems. Commodore 64, Atari, arcade, and even modern retro experiences by indie developers. The cartridges are what really make the Evercade stand out. The resistance to an all-digital future ensures that as long as Evercade is still putting their games on physical media, they can see success. Now, this Evercade you see is the first one, and I didn't buy it. I borrowed it from my friend PK in the universe, who absolutely loves the Evercade and has a number of insightful and helpful videos on his channel. So if you love the Evercade and somehow haven't found his channel yet, or are new to the Evercade scene and want to see more content, I'll leave a link to his channel in the description down below. I have had this Evercade for months, and it has sat in its case since I brought it home. It's not because the Evercade is bad, it's just that it's not for me. But I can appreciate the potential of the platform as it pertains to the future of retro gaming. If you've been following my channel for a while, I talk about retro video game prices, and over the past 3 years, they have exploded, leaving a lot of people to give up collecting and seek out cheaper, more convenient alternatives. And the Evercade is just that. It's pretty convenient and it's inexpensive. Carts are about $20 to $25 MSRP, and the Evercade itself can be found for as low as $100 new. And the games offered are more than just generic no-name stuff. You got Joe and Mac, Burger Time, Double Dragon. These are some cool games, and sure, you're not going to find Sega or Nintendo properties on these, but if you own the EXP model of the Evercade, you can get 18 Capcom games built in. So Evercade is building quite the library of games. Now, I know what you're thinking, Nick, it's an emulation device, that's gross. Well, a lot of emulation happens in your day-to-day life and you probably don't even notice. You have a modern car? Those turn signal sounds that you hear are from a speaker behind the dash to mimic the sound that the blinkers used to make when they were mechanical. Your doctor's office probably emulates their ancient AS400 software too. New compilation like the Cowabunga collection? That's emulation. It's not native to the system that you're playing it on. And that's what Evercade does unless otherwise specified. There are native Evercade games like Cathedral, for example, but honestly, it doesn't matter. These are old games and emulation has gotten so good that it's almost imperceivable. And this goes for almost every other emulation system out there. If you're like me and prefer to play original hardware, that's fine. But I think that you can at least appreciate that there are now devices for a reasonable cost that don't compromise on what they're trying to accomplish. The emulation allows Evercade to offer features such as save states so that you can pick up where you left off instead of starting over, and there are display options such as scan lines and borders. And if you own a VS system, there are some 8-bit DOE controllers that you can use if you are like me and find the stock controller uncomfortable. And retro is just one part of Evercade's charm. What I think the true potential of the Evercade is indie games. And I know that retro games are fun and they're comforting, but there's a whole world of indie games that are inspired by those retro games that instead of munching quarters, they offer expansive gameplay. Deadius, for example, is one on the Indie Heroes 1 collection, and while it was originally made for the Game Boy, the game offers something that you never would have gotten on the platform back in the day. A horror game that takes place over 3 days with multiple endings. Maybe the Game Boy is a bit too retro for you, so why not try Cathedral, which is a bridge between 8 and 16-bit, but it's Metroidvania style, and it's similar to Shovel Knight with a killer soundtrack and smooth gameplay. These games shine on the Evercade because you might not have known about these games otherwise. While Cathedral is on the Nintendo Switch, the Switch is becoming bloated with software, making it very difficult for good indie games to stand out, and even if a large YouTuber highlights it on their channel, Evercade can offer indie developers a devoted audience of gamers by putting their games on a physical cart, whether with another game, like in this case, Alwa's Awakening 8-bit version, or in a compilation of games from a specific publisher like Mega Cat Studios. The other cool thing about Evercade is that there is room for every cartridge to breathe. Evercade releases a new cart or two every couple of months instead of every week like other publishers, and they're not in limited supply. Well, that's not entirely true. The Evercade isn't this bastion of preservation like I would hope, but it's not particularly their fault. But I do wish that licenses wouldn't expire so quickly, because Evercade's success means that larger developers can try to squeeze more money from the small company. And as a result, some of the earlier cartridges from Evercade are no longer available for sale, and if you are interested in those, you'll be paying more than the original $20. While it's still possible to find deals on those cartridges, it is kind of frustrating if you are new to the Evercade and find out that you can't play Pac-Man unless you track it down secondhand. Also, I believe some of the Namco collection doesn't work on the VS because of Namco's licensing prohibiting home console use. Then of course, you have digital-only options. The Capcom collection isn't a cart, and it never will be, at least as of the recording of this video. It's a digital exclusive to one specific console, and that's the Evercade EXP. So if you were an early adopter and got the original Evercade or the VS, you'll have to pony up $150 more to play Mega Man and other titles. There are also these Super Pockets, which don't really bear the Evercade name, but they have different compilations built on it depending on which model you choose. You can also play Evercade carts, and these are significantly cheaper, but I have a feeling that we'll be seeing more of these compilations in different colorways in the future. These are little stocking stuffers, and while I haven't owned the Evercade, I am aware of how passionate the fan base is and how much people like to collect for the system. And it seems like a no-brainer to release a Pac-Man or a Data East version down the line. But thankfully, it seems that Evercade is aware that they could potentially flood the market and cause burnout among the fans. As of the recording of this video, they still seem to be trickling the content out over time and giving the appearance of a curated library instead of just throwing out every single game under the sun, hoping that it'll stick. While I personally wouldn't buy an Evercade for myself, I'm actually going to return this one after the recording of this video. I do feel that they are doing a retro gaming community right, and if you are looking for something that's convenient and inexpensive to satisfy that retro itch, you can't go wrong with the Evercade, especially if you're a fan of physical media. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about the Evercade. Do you own one? Do you want one? Comment down below, and if you like this video, give it a like and share it with those who might find it interesting. And if you're new here, I have a variety of videos including price trends of physical retro games called Retronomics. If that interests you, you can consider subscribing for future content. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at snicktendo. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Nick, and I'll see you next time.